Welcome to 39-Minute Conversations. Please wait for your host to begin this meeting. Your meeting is now being recorded.
Okay, there we go. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. For the listener, I want to blame technical issues. This is the second time we started this episode, but it was not technical issues. It was my scattered brain forgetting some stuff, but now we're ready to go. So before we get started, I do want to do an ad read because that is how this podcast works. This episode of 39-Minute Conversations is brought to you by healthcare.gov. It is that time of year again when we're reminded that we live in one of the only first world countries on earth that doesn't guarantee the right of healthcare to its people. The time of year when people recently laid off from their jobs, which has been happening a lot lately in entertainment, news, tech, most industries, they're reminded of the inherent cruelty and inefficiency of tying the basic necessity of healthcare to something as inconsistent as employment in this modern economy. The time of year when many writers, actors, and filmmakers and other folks in this industry realize that we didn't make enough money this past year to keep our insurance next year. So what do we do? Do we fix this broken system? Do we guarantee healthcare to everyone who needs it, which is everybody? Of course not. No, go to healthcare.gov and find a plan that you can afford that looks like maybe it'll keep you alive for another year. A plan that maybe lets you keep the prescriptions you need to not die, and a new doctor, because it's totally sustainable and best practice to have to look for a new doctor every year. Why would you want to keep a doctor who understands you, your body, and the care you need? Changing doctors every year is totally fine. Great system. 2022 is winding down, so go to healthcare.gov today because you can't sign up year-round for some reason. That's healthcare.gov. It's the best we can do, apparently. And we pause, and then, hello, I am Brian T. Arnold, and this is 39-Minute Conversations, a podcast about reconnecting with old friends and making new ones, but I've only got 39 minutes to do it because I will not be paying for Zoom Pro. My guest today is a very funny writer and comedian. She has written and performed sketch comedy at the UCB Theater, The Magnet, Second City, and The Pack. She created the show Maddie Paz is a Noob for Amazon, and she's also written for shows like The Detour, The Crude's Family Tree, and The Mighty Ones, whose final season premiered December 9th on Hulu and Peacock, so definitely check that out. Stephanie Streisand. Hello.
Hey.
I love that you kept your camera off for that whole thing. I was sitting here.
I thought I was supposed to.
I was sitting here wondering if you were going to turn it on at any point, or if I was just going to be talking to a blank screen.
I laughed so hard at our horrible situation when it comes to healthcare.
Oh, good. I didn't realize you were muted either. So I was just like, okay, this isn't killing. This is going.
Oh, no. I was like, oh, well, he's doing his commercial. I should mute.
I mean, you're welcome to participate. I should make that clearer. Just, hop in, you can be present for these ads and whatnot. It is good to see you now that I can see you. I'm very happy to have you.
It's good to see you.
I want to start where I start with, most of my guests, that, I don't have to recap how weird and awful and existentially scary these last 3 or so years were. But how have you been? How did you cope? What has this time looked like for you?
I was lucky enough to be working through almost all of the pandemic. Lucky and unlucky, because I did experience intense burnout at one point.
Okay.
I was working on 2 shows and a movie at the same time.
Yeah, that's a lot of things to do.
A lot of things.
That's crazy.
But it kept me sane enough. I mean, I do say full sentences to my dog.
Sure.
Like she's going to respond to them. That has come out of the pandemic.
You weren't already doing that? Because that feels like most pet owners, I think, communicate, expect to hear something back almost.
Well, it's gone from oh, you want some food to Oh, you haven't eaten since this time. Are you hungry right now? Do you want some food? It's
Yeah,
always hunger.
I've gotten to that point, but with plants, which is sadder, I think. I don't have a pet. I just have a bunch of plants I'm trying to keep alive. And, you know, I don't talk to them as often as I should, but every time I water them, I'm like, are you enjoying this? Do you like your little it's I kind of have names for them, but not really. It's sadder. It's sadder because a dog at least can look at you with emotion and
Yeah,
a
yeah,
plant
you
not so much.
project understanding onto
Hmm.
it.
Stephanie, we've known each other for a few years. We
Yeah,
used to do improv together.
yeah.
We were on a team for a while. We hung out in that context, but I don't know if we've ever really had like a full-on deep conversation. We've hung out, but like, have we ever gotten deep and introspective with each other? I don't know.
I don't think so.
So I'm excited. I can just get to know you better on that level.
Yeah.
I want to start. I want to start at the beginning. You are from Long Island, New York.
Oh, yeah.
I've been to New York a couple times. I've never been to Long Island. What was it like growing up there? What did childhood look like there for you?
Um, you're from West Virginia,
I
right?
am.
So I'm
Yes.
trying to think of like how to compare it. But I've only been in one area of West Virginia, and I don't even remember what the area was called. But it
That's
was
okay.
sorry. It's uh I would compare it to like Shreveport. I've been to Shreveport before,
Okay.
Louisiana. What is it like? It is, there's like a a very rich area.
Hmm.
Uh, there's middle class, and there's like the rich area. Like I went to school with rich kids who were wearing like those Steve Madden shoes in kindergarten. So they walk around
Okay.
in like huge platforms and just like 5-year-olds not being able to walk around. Uh, and I went to a performing arts high school after getting kicked out of my public high school
Oh,
for
can I get what did you get kicked out of your public high school for? Can I ask?
yeah, it like the final straw was I went onto the roof of the building and threw all the handballs that got stuck on the roof down.
That sounds like a public service to me.
And
Why are you getting kicked out for that?
uh I couldn't get back down after climbing.
People forget about that part. Like when somebody climbs Mount Everest, they think they're done, but they have to get back
They
down
have
the
to get back
mountain.
down. Yeah. Yeah. So that was the final straw, but before that, like I was kicked I would go into class and just like it was only like 5 minutes I'd be kicked out of the class. I was just a smart ass, and
Yeah.
I always came unprepared, and it was
Mm.
disruptive to the point where I'd sit down and be like, hey, you got paper? Do you have a pen? Like it would just be a thing, and eventually it'd just be like, just leave. There
Yeah.
were points where I'd walk in 5 minutes late and they'd just be like, just go. I don't want to deal with you today. Just go to in-school suspension. Um,
When you got to the performing arts high school, did that like turn you around a little bit? Because it sounds like, if I'm going to play armchair psychologist here, that you just weren't enjoying. You were acting out. You weren't like doing what you wanted to do. You weren't studying anything that interested you. Did the performing arts high school like, oh my God, this is it. I've found like now I can be myself.
Yeah, it did because I was the only ninth grader that went full day. A lot of kids went half day and went back to their
Hmm.
public schools. But because I went there for my academics and I was the only ninth grader, uh, it, I was the only student in all of my classes. So the teachers had plenty of time to like deal with my bullshit and also teach me.
Yeah, it's hard to be disruptive when there's no one to disrupt with.
Yeah, and I didn't have homework that whole year anymore after that because I would just do the work in class, and that was
Sure.
my biggest problem is I never did homework.
Okay.
So once there was no homework, I did a lot better at school.
That's interesting. That's so interesting. I didn't know you had that much of a, I mean, rebellious, wild kid streak to you. I didn't know this about you.
I always say I got out my 20s and my teens. And
Okay, so
I
now,
mellowed by the time I became in my early 20s.
so now you can sit at home comfortably with your dog that you talk to and not cause any trouble anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
When did you, okay, so did you know, like, you know, a lot of kids when if they get in trouble might get sent to, you know, a religious school or a military school, or so you got sent to performing arts high school. Did you already know at that point that you wanted to do this, or was that just like a punishment that turned into your life?
I had by that point already done some community theater.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was getting expelled, there was a school for kids that got expelled.
Mm-hmm.
But that same program had like a trade school program, and it also had a performing arts high school. So when they were like, you're going to the expelled program where we rehabilitate you so that you can go back to a public school,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, no, I can sing. And I auditioned, and it was like in order to go to the school, I also had to go to therapy
Okay.
just to be like, is she going to be boisterous and loud? And after a month, or even before then, the teachers at that school were like, oh, she's fine. She's just oppositional and
Mm-hmm.
hard ass, but like, there's no one for her to play off of. She's the only kid in her class this year, so it'll get out of her.
So you had like, there's like a 50-50 shot of you either being in comedy and performing or a welder. It sounds like.
Yeah. Oh, thank God I could sing.
Okay, so you're already doing theater and stuff at that point. When did you know that you wanted to like be a writer? Was there a show or a movie or something that like woke up your brain of like, oh, this is what I want to do, and people actually do this?
I looking back, I could see things that made me go, oh, I was a writer all this time. But like, if you had told me when I was a kid that I'd be spending the rest of my life doing 30-page papers or 90-page paper, I would have cried like for days. But when I was a kid, I was like, oh, I want to be a singer or a homicide detective because
Sure.
I could always like solve the murder mystery shows.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, the only reason why I figured them out was because I figured out the structure of those shows.
Okay.
I realized pretty early that I'm pretty oblivious otherwise.
Yeah, it's tougher to solve a real mystery when there's no like act breaks or story structure present.
Yeah, or like, why did that person only say one line and then leave? They must be coming back later.
There's no big guest star that you know is the killer. Like, oh, Chevy Chase is in this episode.
Right.
He did it. Yeah.
Right. It's like, why did we look at that picture for no reason for 5 seconds? That must be, let's rewind it, look at it. That comes back later.
I think you'd be a good homicide detective if there was like a director who was like really pointing you at everything you needed to see.
Yes. I need Ryan Johnson to put me on the case. You know?
Oh man, I'm so excited for Glass Onion. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, it's fun.
It's fun. Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's super fun.
I love him. Yeah, so when I talk to new writers, which I do somewhat often, I feel like people, and I was the same way when I was trying to come up, that people are looking for this formula for kind of how to break in or like what's the right path. And I think the more you talk to writers, the more you kind of realize there is no one path. Like everybody has a different story. So how did you go from, you know, performing arts, high school, getting into comedy, all these things to like, oh, now this is my job? I'd love to hear a little bit of like that actual story and journey.
Oh man. So I I got kicked out of a summer camp where I was
This is a pattern. This is a theme.
I was a counselor in training at a camp.
Okay.
And I got fired or kicked out or what, because they don't pay you. You like pay them to be the counselor in training. It's weird.
That's weird.
Well, because you get to go on all the field trips, but you're like learning.
Sure.
It's like a mix of being a counselor and a camper at the same time.
Okay.
But I was fired pretty fast because I jumped into a pool with all my clothes on and then convinced all the kids to do the same. And all the kids didn't have changes of clothes, so they all had to go home. So I was asked, that was the final straw, and I was asked not to come back.
So many final straws for you.
Well, because it's a lot of like dumb little things.
Mm-hmm.
And then that one is like, okay, we're done. Like I was able to put up with your bullshit before of like stealing snacks from whatever to like give to everybody or whatever dumb shit I was doing.
It sounds like you weren't doing these like it sounds like you were almost the Robin Hood of these situations. Like, I'm going to return these handballs from the roof. I'm going to pass out these snacks I stole. I'm going to get these kids to have fun. But you weren't doing selfish things. You were like, I'm going to make everybody have a good time, but in a way that's going to get me in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it was all like fun stuff. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to like beat the shit out of somebody.
Which I could still see. I could still see you doing that, though.
Oh, thank you.
You have that Long Island in you. That scares me a little bit.
Ooh, I'll take it. Yeah, I'm like real tough.
Yeah, for sure. Say it just like that.
But my parents didn't want to spend the summer with me annoying them the whole time. So they had heard about UCB through like the newspaper or something. And I think they misunderstood or misread it. My mother was like, oh my God, Gilda Radner learned from them.
Sure.
And I had her Broadway show on VHS that I watched.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, go there, do some improv there. And I got hooked pretty fast. I did some intensive program they had. So it was almost like a summer camp for me.
Yeah. And you were a teenager at this point doing UCB in New York.
Yeah, I was 15.
Wow.
So everybody was sorry. There's something next door.
It's good. It's good. People love sound. People love like horrible sounds in a podcast. It's great.
Yes, happy editing.
Oh, I do very little editing. Enjoy the apartment noise, listeners. Continue.
So I did that, and I did do, and then out of high school, I did do like some off Broadway and a tour in like musical theater. And then there was nothing, so I just like really went harder into UCB. And and I started getting praise for the comedy sketches that I would write for myself. And what's good about writing compared to acting is writing, like acting, if you're sick that day, you're not getting the job probably.
Sure.
But if you're sick that day with writing, it doesn't matter. Your sample is always your sample. It always looks exactly the same.
That's true.
So that is one of the good things about writing. And then, and I just got more response off of my writing, or positive reinforcement. And I think it was just like, oh, okay, I'll do this more then. And I got my first paying job like $20 a sketch for some site.
Sure.
I was like, oh my God, I could make money this way. And then I was a babysitter for a real long time.
Sure. It's funny. I think that happens there are some people who are just like, can do it all at the same time and rise up that way, like your Donald Glovers or, the people who are like, oh, I write, direct, act, all of it. But for me personally, I think for a lot of people, like I was in a similar boat where I was doing improv, I was acting, I was, but then I was like, I'm taking a shotgun approach to my career right now. And I think I need to laser focus on one thing. And yeah, for me, it was also like, I think writing's the thing that I'm best at and my best shot. And then everything else, like if I want to do it later, maybe it'll work out. But at least but for right now, I got to focus on something. So it seems like you kind of learned that pretty early, and it took me, a lot longer.
I mean, I would say at a certain point, like UCB was a great experience, but at a certain point I should have stopped stuff at UCB, only because it did take up a lot of my time. Once I stopped myself from doing so much there, was I able to, like, I wrote a sample a week after I stopped doing stuff at UCB, because I was like, all right, I'm gonna fucking do this. And then
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, once I started really concentrating that way, and I guess what I'm saying is you got to know when one thing that has worked for others is not the thing that's going to work for you, and to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I remember the only time I got a call back for a Herald team, which is the house team at UCB, for people who don't know, like I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is finally like my life starting. It's weirdly, UCB and improv it's weirdly addicting, because it's just such a it's like instant gratification of like, making something so up on the spot and getting an immediate laugh, versus like writing something for 6 months and hoping somebody likes it. So it's just like, it's this rush every time you perform. And it can kind of take over your life if you're not careful. Because when I didn't get on a Herald team, I was like, I had an emotional breakdown. Like I was like crying at work when I found out that I didn't make it. And then like maybe after an hour of like just my life is over, I was like, I didn't move here for this. Like this is great. This is fun, but man, I'm putting way too much pressure on something that is maybe not my path and not what I even came out here to do.
Yes. When I got on Mod, I was like, oh my God, like I felt this feeling of euphoria, like I can't believe I've made it. And then Mod was, I was with very talented writers and actors.
Oh, it's such a talent, so many talented people at that point.
But the way it was run is like, you've made it, pay us more money.
Yeah.
To get these things made, and also your actors will only have like a week to learn their lines, or not even like. So it wasn't set up in a way where I would be comfortable inviting anybody to go see it.
Sure. It's just like summer camp. You pay more money to get to do the thing you want to do.
Yeah, it's like being a counselor in training. Yeah. But I was like, once I started showing up, I was like, oh, this is it. This is like the thing that this isn't the thing that I wanted. I can't live doing this. Like I have to figure this shit out. So it was good. It really helped me a little bit figure my shit out. I also had to step away from UCB to learn what my voice was, because I started UCB so young that I was very influenced by what other people thought was funny. And writing towards that. And so stepping away was great, because then I was like, well, what the fuck do I want?
Yeah.
What do I think is funny?
I think that is both good and bad, because in one way, when you step away from it to learn your own voice, you create a show and you sell it, and it's your voice. But at the same time, you also work in writer's room for other people, and you kind of do have to modulate your voice for that show. So like you've kind of gotten to experience both a little bit of having to write for someone else's voice and writing for your own. Let's talk a little bit about that show that you created. Maddie Paz or Maddie Paz? How do you say it?
Maddie Paz is a noob.
Maddie Paz is a noob.
Yeah.
So you created that show, you sold that show, you made a season of that show.
Yeah.
That's very cool and very exciting. What was that? How did that come about?
I did this CBS diversity showcase as a writer.
Me too.
I
did it 2016. I did it 2016, 2017.
Okay. I did it in 2015.
Okay.
And it was run very interestingly.
Yeah, me too. I think mine was the last year of the people who ran it. Your year also.
Yeah, and it was it was there were aspects that were good about it, and
Yeah.
some aspects that were like, I mean, I was called Mexican girl
Mm.
for a while
Mm-hmm.
by the people who ran it, and then
Yeah.
built up the courage to go. Instead of going, "Don't call me that," the courage I built up was to say, "Hey, I'm not Mexican." They
Sure.
were like, "Oh, which one are you?"
Yeah,
And
this sounds right.
then they call me Jew girl for the rest of the time.
Great.
So, but the bright side of that is, I was like, well, if I'm ever in a toxic work environment, I know now how to survive one.
Sure. Yeah.
Not from that story, but from
In general, yeah.
in general.
It was an interestingly run program.
And luckily, it's no job I've ever had has been toxic.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It feels like they're training you for, like, because they say that,
Worst
like,
case
during
scenario almost. Yeah.
They said that during it, like, this is what it's going to be like in a room. This is how it's going to feel, and you got to get used to it. And then you go to like other rooms and experiences, and you're like, oh no, it's not.
It's not. I mean, there are like some toxic people that you might deal with, but it's because you've dealt with like the worst case scenario, you can like nip it in the bud so easily really early on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But from that, I became friends with a lot of the writers, and one of them recommended me to this company that was looking for a writer to write a show that had incorporated video games in some way.
Okay.
And my friend was like, "Oh my God, all Stephanie does is play video games." So I went in there and I pitched what my idea would be based on a little bit that they wanted, which is like, oh, we wanted to star a kid, and I was telling them about like Let's Play YouTube videos at the time, which was popular. And I was like, what if it's a show in the style of Let's Play? So, and that was non-union.
Oh.
And was supposed to be for YouTube, but I found out later they sold it to Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, that was cool. It was cool. It looks great on my resume. It didn't pay my bills.
Yeah. You know? That happens. That happens a lot.
It happens a lot. Especially at that time when I was unrepped. Now that I'm rep, like that would never happen.
Totally.
That's a great thing about having a rep, is that you could be like, oh man, I would do this for pennies, but my dumb rep wants to pay.
Yeah, it's the same, like being able to use your reps or even the Writers Guild as like bad guys of like, oh man, I'd love to so much. Like so much. You don't even know how much, but like I just can't.
My mean rep won't let you take advantage of me. Ugh, it's so not fair.
After Maddie Pause, you then moved on to writing in other people's rooms. You wrote on the Detour, you wrote on the Crudes TV show, and now the Mighty Ones, which just ended. Was it weird? Was it different, like going from like creating your own show to then being like a person in a room who's like less in charge?
No, it's always been really fun, and I think it's because my samples, they're very slapstick. The shows that end up taking meetings with me, they're already kind of in a slapstick category. So whether it's live action or animation, like it hasn't, writing towards like Jason Jones's voice, it was pretty easy to like tweak myself, because the comedy was still like, what's funny, like what's really silly, what is slapstick, what slapstick can we do? And then it was, I don't know, it was just easy to kind of, it was all about like what's funny.
Yeah.
And same thing with Crude, same thing with the Mighty Ones was the best, because the Mighty Ones, was it was the best experience because they were like, we love your voice.
That's nice to hear.
So there was and there was a lot of collaboration involved with the artists, which was awesome. So like, and so it was like, oh yeah, pitch us stuff that you would want to watch. And then the directors there's multiple directors in animation. Oh no, 9 minutes left. Oh no,
10 minutes. 10 minutes. We have time. We're good.
But everybody was kind of on the same wavelength, which is why I think it was an awesome experience, is because it was a cartoon show with everyone who like loved comedic cartoons growing up, and now that they were there, and it was just a joyful experience. Background artists were allowed to like pitch a joke for their backgrounds.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like it was very collaborative, and everybody was really funny. The showrunners did a really great job hiring everyone across the board.
That's amazing. And yeah, I was looking at that. I'll be honest, I have not had the chance to watch it yet. I want to, and I will, I promise. But not only like, so you're writing for people like voiceover legends like Fred Tatasquire,
yeah, Stephen
Root, Katie Walgren, and then also like some very funny people in modern comedy like Jessica McKenna and Jimmy Tatro. Like, it must feel pretty amazing to like, whatever I write, I know this is going to be delivered like just like a home run from these like big hitters.
It's great. It's great. Even if like every step of the way, like things are tweaked and elevated. It just was it's one of those experiences where you can literally like, once it was written, I was never like, hey, how's it going? I was just, I mean, everybody was trusted to do the job that they were hired to do. Where I've been in other rooms where a showrunner has been a little more micromanaging.
Sure.
Because maybe they were new at show running, and so that they were being like a little, so that can kind of stunt it. These, like, I mean, I've just been very lucky with showrunners where when a showrunner is confident and everyone is trusted to do the job that they are hired to do, all the shows are always better and everything is elevated. Yeah, it was super fun.
If you're gonna pitch this show, first of all, it's animation. Is it more children's or is it more adult animation?
Can my
niece and nephews watch it?
Yes, your nieces and nephews can watch it. I will say, so there was a little back and forth over whether the show should only be for kids or not within the first season, and then. By the time I was hired, I wrote for the 3rd season and the 4th season.
Okay.
They like everyone, DreamWorks, Hulu, everybody understood that the tone of the show would be for everyone, and it would be like jokes for kids, but it's like it's for college kids, which is our way of saying stoners.
Sure.
But it gets very one of the co-creators worked on Ren and Stimpy, and the other co-creator was a director on Gravity Falls, and so it's it gets very like Rocko's Modern Life-ish, Ren and Stimpy-ish.
Yeah,
like,
we watch.
It's real weird.
Yeah, we watched some messed up stuff. We watched some messed up cartoons when we were kids. Yeah. That line used to be a lot less clear of like, is this a kid show or
how weird
is it?
So we were definitely writing for the 10-year-olds.
Okay.
Or like the kids that want to be 10. Instead of writing down, it was like we wrote shows we'd watch as kids or as adults.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds like a really great experience. I'm glad you got to do that.
Yeah.
And so, and it that was the final season, and it's out. Is it the final season?
The 4th season is the final season, and I didn't know how it ended. So I jumped to the ending after watching 4 of them to see how they came out, because the writers, we get taken off
Of
before
course, yeah.
the animation is completed. So it's been fun being like, oh, how'd this come out? And just being like, yeah. But the last episode made me cry a little.
Oh, good. That's amazing.
It ends in a very like, this is the end of the show kind of way.
It's good that they got to do that, because that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
I wanted to get into this. We don't have a ton of time left, so let's try to do a little short, I guess. Because in addition to being a very talented writer and comedian and actress and all these things, singer, many people might not know that you are also one of the worst cooks in America. You were on a reality show called Worst Cooks in America. How did you end up doing that? And are you a better cook now?
That's like the only thing I ever got out of UCB. UCB, once you get on like the performer page, they send out shit like, oh, do you want to, some of them are great. It's like, oh, do you want to be a writer for Howard Stern? He's looking for writers. And then a lot of times, some of the times, it's like, hey, they're looking for a funny person to be on Worst Cooks. So if you suck at cooking.
Did you suck at cooking, or did you play up how much you sucked at cooking?
No, I didn't play up how much I suck at cooking, but I think other contestants did.
Are you a better cook now?
No. I'm more like, I'm not scared. I can saute mushrooms now.
Hey, that's something. Yeah,
I can saute shit. I feel comfortable doing that. I'm impatient when it comes to cooking meat. So I wouldn't trust myself to cook meat. I'm just like constantly flipping it and flipping it and flipping it. Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say that I was a bad cook. I would say that I'm just a very inexperienced cook.
That's fair. Okay, we have about
other people were doing, which was like, I think that the show I was on, a contestant like was like, I always make matzo balls with gummy bears inside, and I'm like, okay, well, you're either playing it up or you're deranged. And
okay, we have a little less than 3 minutes left, so I want to use this time real quick to give you the chance to, where can people follow you? Anything you want to plug other than Mighty Ones or including Mighty Ones, etc.
Man, I would really like to plug the Mighty Ones. I also wrote on a spin-off of How to Train Your Dragon. It's called Dragon's 9 Rounds. The new, I don't know when my season comes out.
At some point, yeah.
At some point it will come out. It gets good and plotty in a fun way. I can't plug my movie yet because
you can't tell you what it is yet.
Yeah, it's to be announced.
Yeah,
it's a comedy.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird living in that world of like, I have a couple things like cooking, but I can't say anything about them, and it's so hard. It's so hard.
I could say it exists.
Yeah.
It's slapsticky. But yeah, the Mighty Ones. I mean, check it out. It's.
I definitely will.
Yeah.
And people can follow you on
my episodes, though. Start with
Of course. Watch Stephanie's episodes first. Where can people follow you on the socials, on the Instas, on the Twitters, on anything like that?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. Yeah. I'm not a big social media person, you could tell. But I do post on Instagram. I'm Steph Streisand on Instagram, so it's just
half your names, just half.
It's half of my name. So
people
first
will figure that out.
Yeah, first 5 letters, then first 6 letters. I mean, you can follow me on Twitter if you want, but like, I just repost. I'm not like I don't. Twitter gives me anxiety.
Yeah, me too, but I can't get off of it. Okay, real fast. One quick announcement. Don't have time for another ad read, but real quick announcement. This is the last episode of 39-Minute Conversations of the year. Taking the holidays off. Everybody enjoy your holidays. I really appreciate everybody listening. I wrote up a lot more than this, but we don't have time. But thank you for listening and letting me do this and making it a show. Stephanie, it is the holidays. What is your favorite holiday tradition? Do you have one?
Probably eating the food
That you don't make?
that I don't make, that I
buy. What is your happiest memory
ever
in your life?
30 seconds.
Your meeting has ended. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to 39-Minute Conversations, hosted and produced by Brian T. Arnold. Music by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and tune in for new episodes, and don't forget to rate and review. If you didn't like what you heard, please don't do any of that. That's okay too. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe and be well.